Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show. I'm so glad that you joined me here today. I am super excited about my guest. You're going to absolutely adore her, and we're going to talk about some really juicy stuff today. So let's get it rolling. Dr. Keesha is a board-certified functional and advanced Ayurvedic medicine practitioner, as well as doctor of sexology, and a whole bunch of other stuff. She's an advanced registered nurse practitioner, certified psychotherapist, and the founder and medical director of the Academy for Integrative Medicine Health Coach Certification Program. She's the founder and host of the Healthy You radio network. And she's also the best-selling author of Solving the Autoimmune Puzzle, The Women's Guide to Reclaiming Emotional Freedom and Vibrant Health. And I am so excited about that. She's also the author of Your Libido Story. So I say because both Dr. Keesha and I were together this past week. Yeah, baby. Working on our books side by side, making sure we got our message out to the world and supporting each other in that. And it just was a really exhilarating experience. And now we're, both best-selling authors, and it's just super exciting. So yes. Welcome, Dr. Keesha. So glad you're here.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
That's great. Oh, I'm so psyched to talk to you. So, okay, tell me, let's start out with your story. Like, how did all this come about? You're doing a lot of amazing things in the world, but you didn't come out of the chute that way. So, so tell me how it all got started.
Well, when I turned 30, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease of my own called rheumatoid arthritis. And my grandfather had rheumatoid arthritis. So when I went in to see my doctor and was diagnosed with that, I said, oh, this runs in my family. And so she just said, well, it's genetic. Here are some medications to take. Go home. Let me know if they don't work. And, there you go. This is to manage your symptoms. You're going to have this for the rest of your life. So I went home and I looked up the side effect profile of cancer-fighting drug called methotrexate, and this prescription non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug that I was given to manage my pain. And I thought, my gosh, these side effects are awful. This is not how I want to live my life. I was 30. I have 4 little kids. I didn't want to really poison my body in this way. So I started doing my own research. Back in those days, it was on Ask Jeeves rather than Google.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, the little butler popped up.
Jeez.
Yep, exactly. And I found a couple of good science articles about yoga and autoimmune disease. And so I started practicing yoga because I was running marathons in those days and didn't know anything about anything that I do today. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, neither do a lot of people.
Nothing. It was crazy how little I knew. Yeah. So I went down that road and started practicing yoga. I became a yoga instructor. And during my process, I learned about the sister science of yoga, which is Ayurvedic medicine. Long story short, I had my rheumatoid arthritis reversed within about 6 months.
Wow.
Now, part of that path was learning how to meditate. And as I learned how to meditate, I was sitting one day and I started really examining the word autoimmune. And I realized auto means I'm attacking me. And that I was actually, in effect, committing suicide in a societally accepted manner. And so I thought, why would I want to kill myself? I've got this great life I love. I've got these 4 kids. And why would I want to kill myself? So I started going backwards to the first time I had told my cells that it was time to check out. I really got that spiritual connection between, where it was that my story linked into this. And I went back to this 10-year-old little girl who'd been sexually abused, and by the vice principal of my elementary school. And, it was one of these things where I was in trouble getting called to the principal's office. And so it was such a mess with the mind, right?
Totally, yeah.
I had to learn how to, my story I told myself is I have to be perfect, because if I put one toe, I could be in the principal's office, right? And so it was this really messed up kind of year for me. Nobody that I told this was happening to really understood what I was saying because I didn't have language for this. Like, I didn't know what sexual abuse was. I just thought I was bad.
Yeah.
So in those days, I got really in touch with spirit and just angels, because that's who I was calling on, you know, like, what help me? I don't understand. And I got a really deep relationship with the spirit world. And I kind of thought, well, that's a nicer place than this world that I'm living in, you know?
Yeah.
I think I'd like to go there.
Yeah.
And so I kind of created this belief system back in those days, because remember, your brain's not fully developed till you're 26 years old. So this is a 10-year-old child trying to make sense out of a situation that makes no sense.
Right.
And really trying to logic it through of how to prevent it, how to survive, how to, you know. And so what I decided is, if things get too tough, I can just go. I remember telling my parents I wasn't going to be a grandma. I wasn't going to live that long. I just felt like that was the case. So I had told my cells way back then that I didn't really want to be here. Right. That I didn't think this world was safe. People couldn't be trusted. Authority definitely couldn't be trusted. And, you know, my cells accommodated me. They said, okay. And here I was at 30, not wanting to do that anymore.
Yeah, kind of your wish is my command.
Right.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I see. I created this story when I was 10. Meanings, beliefs, behaviors. That's what I write about in Solving the Autoimmune Puzzle. Is this missing piece towards autoimmunity oftentimes is trauma. You know, and there's no child that hasn't had trauma.
Right.
You know, it may not be sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional, psychological, but there are stories we make up. And I always say, you know, if you had 3 girlfriends out on the playground and one day they turned their backs on you and they're not your friend anymore, that is rejection.
Yeah.
We're wired that if we're rejected from the tribe, it's dangerous. You may not survive. The saber-toothed tiger may get you. And so every child has had trauma. And that's the piece that actually starts pulling apart the gut lining. That then, you know, when I was 30, I was allergic to gluten and dairy, and I was addicted to sugar, which is, you know, where you and I connect so well.
Yeah, know all about it.
Yeah. Had to really get underneath that. And then I had this genetic piece. So, you know, to say that this was in my family and just genetic was so short-sighted,
yeah.
Right? To say it's only about leaky gut, heal your gut, that's also not enough. There are 4 puzzle corners, right? These cornerstones to your puzzle. And it's leaky gut, it's environmental toxins, it's genetics, but it's also trauma. It's what your meanings are that you created with an undeveloped brain when you were young, before you were 26 years old.
That's amazing. Oh, God bless you. I'm so glad you're doing this. And I'm so glad your book is here, because it's just, that is so valuable. It's such valuable information, and absolutely it's right up my alley, because it's, you know, so many doctors. I mean, there's some great doctors out there who are definitely, you know, digging into this in a really, really effective way. But to overlook the emotional, not that they are overlooking it, but, you know, the fact that you're digging in so deep into the emotional and the effects, you know, just the equally weighted effects that has on our health and the way our system works is so incredibly groundbreaking. So I just really thank you for that work. I just am so happy you're doing this. Tell me more about how the trauma relates to your gut, because that's fascinating.
So this is actually scientifically proven, which is the coolest thing. It's why I'm a psychotherapist and medical, is because it wasn't that long into my medical practice that I realized, you know what, there's nothing I'm seeing my patients for that doesn't start right here. You know, like, it's so clear you can't separate these things apart the way that we try to. So there was a study done between 1995 and 1997 called the ACE study, Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. And there were 17,000 participants in the study that Kaiser Permanente and the Centers for Disease Control did. Yep. Over 2/3 of the control group, you know, these participants of the study, had an adverse childhood experience that they reported within the 10 criteria that the researchers are looking at, which 5 of them were direct abuse and 5 of them were more neglect or abandonment or watching a parent get beaten, having an addictive parent, a divorce, incarcerated parent. So all of those things are, have an impact, right?
Right.
So the younger you are that you have these adverse childhood experiences, what the study showed is that sets you up for chronic illnesses that we see in adulthood, like autoimmunity and cancer and heart disease, all of them. Depression, anxiety, obesity. This was actually done in an obesity clinic. That's where this all started.
Okay.
So, what happened is the doctor that ran the obesity clinic said, I have these people losing weight, like crazy amounts of weight, right? And then some of them are dropping out. And when he started interviewing the people that were dropping out, every one of them had a history of sexual abuse.
Absolutely.
And this was huge. He just thought, oh my gosh, So then these two joined together and did this big study, which was pretty groundbreaking in Western medical world.
Absolutely. In
Ayurvedic medicine, it was said 10,000 years ago that an autoimmune disease is undigested anger. In other words,
wow, that's amazing.
It's anger that you've turned inside. You haven't dealt with it. It's eating you alive.
Yep.
Which makes total sense, and that was definitely the case for me. Yep. So learning how to release that was huge.
That's so fascinating. I had a lot of gastrological issues as a kid. I would throw up a lot, and it was always after binging. I mean, I ate huge amounts of food as a kid, but after, when I started doing, my recovery work and trying to really heal, I realized that it was on Sunday nights that I would overeat. I mean, I always overate, but when I'd really pour it on, it was like on Saturdays and Sundays, especially Sunday, and I would eat large amounts of food, and then my stomach was weak, and I would get sick to my stomach late at night. And it was so fascinating looking back to see that was my pattern. It was usually on Sunday nights. And what I realized is that the stress of my family life, really got, that's really what happened, is I was overeating to deal with the stress. And it's kind of strange and ironic because I actually had a pretty good family life, but still, to me, and the way I was interpreting and sort of some of my past experiences with sexual abuse, then being in my family, and, we were all in pain. My sisters were sexually abused. I was sexually abused by different people. We experienced, for me, it was a relative. From them, it was a family friend. But point is, there was so much pain in my house that I was escaping that pain through food on the weekends when we were all there, right? And then that night, I'd have to puke because I was so overloaded with food, and probably because my stomach couldn't deal, I had a sensitive stomach, and couldn't deal with all that food, couldn't process it. So it was just so amazing for me to see the connection between my emotional experiences, and how I was using food and how it was affecting my gut, as well, my whole body. So that's just amazing.
Wow. That's, and the wise mind of the child knows that food is grounding. When you're starting to spin up with anxiety, things you can't explain. That's the thing that I want everybody to understand is your brain's not developed fully. You can't explain what's going on. You can't understand it. You can't logic it. So therefore, you're going to come up with a coping strategy that makes sense to you at the age you are.
Right.
And it's perfectly wise for that age. But then, as you evolve and you grow and you expand your consciousness, you have to go back and re-examine those early tapes. And that's really what this is all about, is taking a look. It's what you do. What is it that you decided so long ago was going to be your strategy? And if it has to do with food filling up a hole, well, that's obviously not sustainable, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's a broken coping tool for sure. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's just amazing. So, so then you got into this work, and have you all along in your work been doing autoimmunity stuff because that's your background?
What I do in functional medicine is, after I reversed my RA, I said, holy cow, this is what everybody needs to know for preventative. So I went back to school, did a whole bunch, all those certifications and degrees, and said, all right, now this is what I need to be doing on the front end before people are diagnosed. But Tricia, I'm telling you, I've come up with this interesting little math formula that I put in my book. I call it the misery to motivation ratio. What I've discovered is people don't want the tools to really self-confront and do that work, right?
Right.
They want the outcome, and they want it fast, and they want it in the form of a pill or a diet or, some kind of magic thing that just happens really quickly.
Exactly.
And so, yes, I work with autoimmunity day in and day out, but I do it under the auspices of hormone balancing or gut healing or, all of it.
Gotcha.
90% of people are running around out there with inflammation and autoimmune disease. 80% of the 145 diseases that we know about that are autoimmune right now, that number's growing, are diagnosed in women.
Wow, 80%. That's incredible. Just name off some of the big ones that people would, think of.
Rheumatoid arthritis, which was the one I got. Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Graves' disease, lupus, multiple sclerosis, myasthenia gravis. Another one that people don't really know is autoimmune. I see this all the time. They don't even realize it's just this funny rash they get sometimes. Eczema. Okay. Eczema is an autoimmune disease.
Wow.
So is psoriasis. So is restless leg syndrome.
Okay. Wow.
Right? So all these things, rosacea. I have these women that will come in with capillaries showing, on their skin. And when I say something about it, they go, oh, yeah, I've always had that. And I'm like, this is an autoimmune disease, my dear. And, another one will be Raynaud's. Oh, yeah, my fingers, when I look down at someone's fingers and they're blue, They say, oh, yeah, that always just happens when I'm cold.
Wow, that's what my sister has that. My dad had that as well. How
autoimmune disease.
Fascinating.
So that becomes somebody's normal, right?
Sure.
And it's the thing that they've lived with for so long that they don't even know that this is actually their bodies attacking themselves. And that's the thing that I'm trying to show is, statistics indicate that if you have one autoimmune disease, you have a 75% risk of getting another one. Well, it's not because you're getting another disease. It's because the root causes haven't been actually addressed, right? So then your body just keeps attacking itself in a different region.
Okay. Same root cause.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are some, besides the trauma, what are some of the other root causes?
So leaky gut, and these two are tied, right? Mm-hmm. So leaky gut, I love to explain it because people oftentimes say to me, well, I don't have leaky gut. And what they're
sounds too awful to have.
They're hearing leaky butt. I'm like, no, this has nothing to do with leaking.
That's funny.
This actually has to do with the lining, which is only one cell layer thick, that's on the inside of every hollow tube you have in your body. Your bronchioles, your nares, your eustachian tubes, right? Everything's lined with this one cell layer thick lining. And it's inside your arteries and your veins. It's on the inside of your intestines. If those cells start to pull apart, we call them loose junctions, then the digested food that's come through your large intestine that's about to be sent out, that has some microscopic food particles attached to it still, because the last bit of your digestive process happens in the large intestine. If there are holes in, spaces between those cells, some of those molecules of food will escape through and go out into the system. And they're not supposed to. That's not supposed to happen.
Okay.
And some of the larger molecules that happens, more frequently would be like gluten and genetically modified foods like soy and corn, dairy. Those will escape more readily. And then the immune system, which is actually wired to attack anything that's not you, sees that as an alien invader, like a virus or a bacteria, forms an antibody against it, and now you're sensitive to that food. And what will happen is when your immune system sees that a lot, and that's been going on for a long time, it becomes what I call hypervigilant, right? So now you have this immune system that's turned up the volume on its radar. It's really seeking to attack, And so now you've got this immune system that's attacking everything. And that's where you start getting inflammation in these different areas. And it's usually the weak parts of your body. Maybe you have a genetic propensity to it. Maybe you have a place that you were injured in the past, and now you're getting this back pain. So any of these arthritic pains that you say, oh, that's an old football injury, you're not supposed to be feeling pain there. That's not normal. Inflammation is not normal. So leaky gut can be caused by stress, because when your stress response system starts to say it's time to flee from the lion that's on your tail or fight it, it releases a stress hormone called cortisol, which can break down the gut wall. And so if you're a child that's very stressed and very anxious, your cortisol is flowing, right? And that will break down your gut wall. So then a kid will wind up with some of these patchy areas that are rashes on the skin, bloating, digestive issues, right? All of these things that a lot of kids will, adults will say, oh, that was just me when I was a kid. That was normal for me.
Right.
So,
wow, that's a great explanation. That's really good. And I actually have been diagnosed with leaky gut in the past couple of years, and I have no idea when I started having it, because you don't know. I mean, you just don't know. But
in childhood, Tricia,
you think it really?
Yeah, if you were stressing, I mean, sexual abuse is a stressful situation.
Yeah, for sure. Right? Yeah. And
all that goes with when you have that fear and anxiety and shame.
Yep, shame. Yeah. Absolutely. Wow, that's fascinating. Yep. Well, I'm working on it now. My diet's like this narrow.
Well, and that's another thing that happens to people. I call it the iceberg situation, where you're on this big float of ice out in the ocean. And then as your diet shrinks, it's like this ice is shrinking. And pretty soon I've had people come to see me that literally are on 5 foods that they say are safe for them. Oh, my
goodness.
And that's not okay either. No. When you're healing leaky gut, it's not just about staying away from the foods that you're triggering to, but it's also about taking supplements that will actually heal the gut wall.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah. And
I am on a robust menu.
Totally. And I am doing many of those things, thankfully. But the diet, if the diet doesn't get, clean, it's like I thought I had a clean diet to begin with, but I had no idea the extent to which I could clean up my clean diet. So,
right.
I actually feel good. I mean, dairy, I never knew I had an issue with dairy or thought about it. I think I willed myself. I'm like, no, I like dairy, so dairy is not a problem. So, but it for years it has been. It's created that phlegmy, head, so it's been really amazing to clean that out and to, go.
So that's not normal. And a lot of people will say, like they'll be clearing their throat and I'll say, do you do that often? Or this postnasal drip, that's not normal.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is your body's not meant to do that. And when you have leaky gut, the body says, oh, we need to put a mucus barrier there so that those molecules can't go through.
Oh,
right.
Wow.
And it doesn't say, well, there's this one little break in the dike, right? In section G4 of your gut, it says, oh, we need to put a mucus net out.
Okay.
And so now you'll have it up here too.
Yeah.
So whatever's going on up here, that's the beauty of Ayurvedic medicine. It actually says, look at your tongue and it's a map of your digestive tract.
Wow.
Look at your face and the wrinkles you have are a map of what's going on in your body. And if you've got mucus and phlegm, that's actually happening below too.
Fascinating. Isn't it amazing that Ayurveda was so tapped into the gut connection so many years ago, and just seems like in Western medicine we're just starting to look under that lid, and it's literally just starting to understand the intelligence of the gut and how much it really is command central for our bodies.
Well, and the interesting part of this is on top of all of that, then, what your tongue says, but I also bring your libido level in.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
That's another thing Ayurvedic medicine said 10,000 years ago was they call your life force or your vitality, your life energy is called ojas. OJAS in Sanskrit. I call it your O juice.
Yeah.
And so what they're saying is, you've got these 7 different tissue layers in your body. And as disease starts to happen, it means you have an imbalance that's just going deeper and deeper and deeper. Well, we don't normally notice in our culture that we have an imbalance until we're about 4th level down out of 7.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Then at 5, we get a diagnosis, right? So now we're so imbalanced. The 7th layer is actually in Sanskrit called Shukra, and that has to do with your reproductive system. And so all these tissue layers are built based on your digestive health and what you're putting in your mouth and what you're putting in your head. So how you digest your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your foods all influence the health of your cells in the next layer. So if one layer is not done well, the next won't go well either. So libido level winds up being the bottom layer, right? So that's like your gas tank on the dashboard of your car is the way I always describe it. And if your gas level is low in your car, you know that if you don't go and fill up the tank, you're going to be broken down on the side of the road.
Right.
Well, what do? Our gas level's low. We reach for a Red Bull or a coffee or something sweet, right?
Yeah.
And we keep going. And so our bodies eventually break down on the side of the road. So what your libido is actually a Latin word that means desire, and it's from the stars. So It means from the stars, which means it's a God-given gift.
Amen.
Right? Yep. It's not a luxury. It's not dispensable. It's not something to ignore.
Right.
And when I think about libido and the way that it's described in Latin and the way it's described in Ayurvedic medicine is it's not about sex. It's all of your desire. It's your desire to do what you love. If you love to be a parent, it's your desire to be a great parent with the energy that you need to do that. If you desire to write books, it's your ability to be able to have the energy to do that. It's your creative force, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's for everything. It's your passion. And that's so important when we just say, oh, well, we can just power through that with a Red Bull. And we're doing ourselves a serious disservice.
Absolutely.
And the body will break down. So these 5 different root causes for low libido, and it's the same for any disease. It includes autoimmunity too. And you're going to have a block in your energy somewhere, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, or in your story and how you tell it.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's so important. Yeah, that's great. No, and we've talked about that before too, just how I know my husband Roy he always teaches his clients, and it's in his book as well, just about how connected our sexuality and our spirituality is, and we're really just talking about life force, in both ways. And you can't shut down sexually and expect to be alive spiritually, and you can't shut down spiritually and expect to be alive sexually, because they're really practically one and the same. Like, we're just talking about a source of energy that's vibrant and alive and ever flowing, and our bodies can't afford to shut off that flow.
Right. And if you have fear about whether or not you're going to have a roof over your head, enough food, enough money, all of those fears that people will get in that have to do with survival, and you're always visualizing a lion on your tail and you're the zebra that's about to get eaten, and that can be, it's usually not true, then you're going to shut down that life force, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to affect everything. Yeah. So with women, I always say, check in with your libido level, because if that's not there, that means you're shut down, you're clamped down somewhere in one of those regions.
And so what do people do? Like, what's a quick way for somebody to, if they're checking in, they're like, wow, I feel nothing, what do you suggest to them?
It depends on where. And I've given you a free tip sheet. It's called Libido Kiss Tips, which means keep it simple, sweetie. And so we'll put that in the list of those.
Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes, everybody. So just go to healyourhunger.com and in this particular show, and you'll get those tips. That's beautiful. So that'll help people.
Yes, because we're complex, and one of the things that we always start with is are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating well for your body? And in Ayurveda, we have a certain body type. Are you eating well for that? Are you pooping every day? A banana-shaped brown poop that's easy to wipe up after? I mean, that sounds so rudimentary, but if you're not having that, then that means you're not getting rid of the trash. Yeah. And if you're not taking out your trash, then your body gets toxic. Are you hydrating? Do you have enough energy do you get out of bed and you spring up saying, oh, I'm so excited for my day? And at the end of the day, do you have enough left over to be with your partner? And if there's a no to all of those, right, then there's going to be somewhere where we need to make some adjustments and get you back into balance.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's so beautifully simple and so often overlooked.
Yeah. And then there's the other side. I call it low libido that's innate and acquired. And acquired is what I just talked about. Innate is I've never had libido. I've always been tired. And we call this resistance to life. And I've never had sexual desire. I've never had any of the things that you're talking about, and I'll have women come into my office and ask for bioidentical hormones. And when I say, when's the last time that you had a sexual desire level that you were happy with? They'll say, well, I've never had one. I say, hormones are not going to do anything here, right? If you haven't had one from the get-go, then we start exploring trauma. There's something else going on, right? Or a cultural story, I was raised in a religion that said that sexual desire was a sin. All of those, it's going to be those places and that's innate low desire.
Okay, well, that makes total sense. And, how often the traumatic religious messages people get about their bodies and their sexuality are related to the very abuse that they experience, whether it's from somebody in the religious sector themselves who have those same, what we repress becomes out of control. So it's so often that people, who are very religious end up being the ones who are perpetrators, because they're condemning themselves so horribly for their own sexuality, and it's coming out sideways, unfortunately. And it's
their shame makes them shame others.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hurt people. So it's so it's so common, as for emotional eaters to be, really to be carrying around this shame and these secrets of sexual abuse. And it's so devastating. And it certainly was for me. I mean, I just had so much self-hatred and body hatred on account of my experiences, and that stuff has to be addressed and healed. That's why the diet mentality is so ridiculous and futile, because there's no way somebody could lose weight, have a change on the outside without changing the inside. It's just absolutely impossible. So I'm so grateful that you're bringing this up and we're talking about it. It's just beautiful. Any other tips that you have or things that you want to share with my audience today?
Well, along those lines, the thing that I always want to leave behind is to really watch your language. And, I don't care if you swear like a trucker, but inside of your mind, watch how you're speaking to yourself. If you wouldn't say the things that you say to your child or to any child or to your best friend, then you need to really start to put those things into a congruence, right? And that's so important. How you speak to yourself, what you're saying, you just really watch it. Start watching it and then switching it. So having compassion for yourself is one of the most important, I think, vitality boosters that there is.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for that. And you are such a compassionate, beautiful, just angel. I just adore you and I love what you're doing. So it's just really so great to hear you. My question that I leave people with, or I ask, of you before we end the call, is basically to tell me what your deepest hunger is.
So my deepest hunger, and I wrote it down years ago when I first started this work after I did my own self-confrontation and forgiveness work and all of that, is to really bring this to as many women as possible. Because what I got, and I'm going to cry right now, is, which is so beautiful how you do this, what is your deepest hunger, is that 1 in 4 women are abused sexually and of some nature, right? And really wanting to reach out and give them the tools that they need to get out of that place, out of that victim place, into a place of shining their very, very brightest and being what they were meant to be. I start out my book with this quote that says, my definition of hell is for the person to show up at the last part of my life that I was meant to be and meets the person that I was. Aww. And if those two don't match, that's hell.
Yeah.
And so my deepest hunger is to really bring everybody into their brightest, shiniest place that they're meant to be.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Amen to that. Absolutely. So everybody, you know I love Dr. Keesha. You know why she's
I love
here.
you too. I'm so happy you do the work you do, Tricia.
Thank you. And congratulations on your book. And for everybody tuning in, please be sure to access the KISS tips for increasing your libido. And that's on healyourhunger.com on this particular episode. So thank you so much, Dr. Keesha, and
thank you.
Keep on shining your beautiful bright light. So thanks so much.
If you enjoyed this show and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.